Okay. Currently no caps, so the cat cam's going off. Alright, setup is done. Hello and welcome to Plugin Along, a stream dedicated to Lord of the Rings Online plugins. Last time on Plugin Along, we tried to make progress on the Festival Buddy 2 plugin save file format, the way data is represented in the save files. And when you do that for a plugin, you want to change both the code that's loading in those files and dealing with old versions of the file, converting them into the new version, and then of course if you're changing the structure of in-memory data structures, then you want to change the code that's looking at them. So it's a two-pronged approach, updating the plugin and writing code to update any old save files. So I spent a lot of time last week banging my head against the unpredictable behavior that results when you mutate a Lua table while you're doing iterating through. So if you know about Lua, you know about the things like pairs and I-pairs, and the behavior of those is not good if you go and add new entries into the table, or possibly delete entries from it, but I'm not sure there's a good way to do. Yeah. Anyway, so if you mutate what's in the table, that's okay. But if you change, or they say it's okay, but if you add a new key or possibly delete a key, then you get possibly undefined behavior or possibly just well-defined behavior but not desired behavior. So that was a lesson learned. We're going to try to take that forward today to have a little bit more success. And today we're going to keep working through the areas of the save files that need updating. As always, feel free to jump into chat with your thoughts and questions. But I was reminded of two things, actually. One, there's an ongoing giveaway, and maybe Little Redhead will be able to pin that giveaway going. We're doing a giveaway for, I think, 500 LOTRO points, and that will be drawn in the near future, just a couple of minutes. So go ahead and type !giveaway if you haven't already to get into that. I don't know how it works when we stop a stream and then start a stream, so just for safety's sake, feel free to do another !giveaway. There's no harm in double entering. And yes, on Little Redhead's stream, the concept of backups came up and how there could have been a data failure at a turbine facility due to a failure of backups. And so I just wanted to toss my 2 cents in. I don't know any details about that, but I do know that backups are tricky. And one of the big things you can fall into trap-wise, if you are an IT person and you're responsible for backups, is you have a robust backup solution. Maybe you back up to secondary hard drives daily, and you back up to tape once a week, and you've got your scripts running and everything's great, but you've never actually tried to do a restore from the backup. And that's a critical piece of it. If you've never done a full restore from your backups, you don't have a functioning backup solution. You have hopes and prayers that your backup solution will work when you need it. And so that's an important part of backups, is trying it out. Now, you might not actually wipe out the current server to restore from backup. You might stand up separate hardware, like a separate machine that you're going to pretend is the main machine, and you would restore from backup from there. So you'd be able to go from an empty hard drive, make sure that you can restore all the operating system files, all the data files, everything that you think that you have backed up, and then in theory you should be able to swap that in for the real one and everything still works. And it's that critical piece of, does the backup result in something that I can actually use to restore into a live scenario? That's sort of a missing step in a lot of backup plans, because you can copy files off to the cloud or off to another drive, or onto a thumb drive that someone takes home and puts in their vault, whatever. But does it work to restore? Epic Games says, let's hope I can grab my laundry faster than the draw. Yeah, let's hope. So if you are tasked in any office environment or any professional environment with backing things up, one of the things you should keep in mind is, how do I prove that the backup works? How do I demonstrate that I can restore from that backup? And it doesn't have to be, it doesn't have to be destructive to the current live environment, but think about what would you need to demonstrate it. If you're just backing up some documents because all you have are a bunch of Word and Excel documents, that kind of thing, cool. Then if you can copy them to a new location and open them and they still work, awesome. But did you remember the copy of Office itself? How are you going to install that? Well, you'll probably just download it. What if your internet connection is down? Do you have offline installers for the software that will read the files that you have backed up? Do you have license keys for this software saved somewhere that is not on the computer that you're trying to restore? Will you be able to authenticate the software that's going to read the files? So it's not just, oh yes, I have an Excel spreadsheet, I've saved it off, cool, what are you going to use to read the Excel spreadsheet? Pamela says, do I have to retype giveaway if I did on LRH's stream? We're in uncharted territories. I don't know if stopping and restarting the stream did anything to that. So yeah, there's no harm in retyping ! giveaway to re-enter the draw, which we'll do here in about 2 minutes. And Little Redhead's going to learn my techniques for doing this. Yeah, anyway, I just wanted to muse on the concept of backups, because backups are something, I'm not great at them. A lot of my files exist in quote-unquote the cloud, which is just read someone else's computer. A lot of my files exist on someone else's computer as a backup. But, if I had to reconstruct my personal machine from scratch because, let's say the cat dropped a glass of water on it, it shorts it all out, and I have to rebuild everything from scratch. Would I be able to do that? How annoying would it be able to do that? Well, I'd have to do some manual stuff because I don't have a taped backup the way I might in a more professional environment. But are there things on this machine that I would desperately miss if this machine just went goodbye tomorrow? The answer is, I hope not, but probably. But in a professional environment where someone's actually paying you to care about this, we can be a little bit more systemic about our choices. Okay, so that was just thoughts I had when Little Redhead was pointing out that part of the history of Turbine potentially includes a data loss. Now, the first thought that came to my head is, I wonder if they thought they had a working backup solution, but it turned out they could not properly restore, or weren't able to restore everything. Now, in the distant history of 2007, they might not have had a backup system at all, but my guess is they would have had something. And just a question of what things can slip through the cracks. Oh, I forgot about that database that Dave stood up. That didn't get included in our system. Or what do you mean? What do you mean all of our stuff was taken out by the same virus? Just stuff. Anyway, so that's that. Jumping on to other things. All right. So, what on earth are we doing today? We're going to come on into the plugin manager. As we can see here, we're working on Festival Buddy 2. I'm going to go ahead and give it a load. This is the user interface, and we are coming rapidly up on the next festival, which was, if anyone hasn't noticed, they've updated the event calendar on LOTRO.com. So LOTRO event calendar. It is now 2024 public event schedule. Epic Games says Spring Festival, and that was what I was thinking as well. So we do have, in January here, we are at 23. So we have a couple of things: Skirmish Marks, Hobnennigan's Crafting XP, Forester Crafting Event. I still haven't jumped into that. I don't know. I guess I'm afraid of new things or something. My main isn't a Forester, so I would be jumping in on an alt anyway. Well, we'll see. Legendary Item Reward Track begins in the middle of February. We are currently 21 days out from the end. I have 68 boxes to claim. That's a later problem. Fantastic. Legendary item eye level cap is going to increase for standard servers. Over here on Treebeard, that doesn't matter so much. Virtue XP, Curator returns. Spring Festival is the big next thing, and that is the beginning of March. Kaleri says, I made my LOTRO events GCal public, but I don't think it's searchable. I'm so used to going to lotro.com/news/LOTRO public event schedule EN that I appreciate that you've got a public GCal though, for anyone who finds that useful. All right. Epic Games said May 7. IC Spring Festival runs from May 7 to, March 7 to March 25. I misread that. Cool. So, Spring Festival is going to be the next one. Hobnanigans has, the Festival Buddy 2 has a lot of support for Spring Festival stuff already. So, if I'd love to finish up the file format changes and get that pushed so that anyone coming into the Spring Festival gets that just sort of automatically. If they've updated their Festival Buddy, everything will be working just fine. All right, so Aaron Bird. I was wondering if you know, what is it about doors that make them challenging for programmers?
Orion said so.
Yeah, this is a reference to something Orion said on Friday's stream. And you know what? Thorntar says, LOTRO merch when? I love LOTRO so much. Been playing since 2008, and most of my LOTRO friends have never heard of LOTRO until I started talking about it. So, this is a well-known problem with Lord of the Rings Online, is that Turbine and then Standing Stone Games, as its successor, have rights to use the intellectual property of Lord of the Rings within certain contexts. So they have the rights to use the Lord of the Rings books, but not the Silmarillion books, for the purposes of making a video game. But what they don't have the rights for are to merchandise that video game. So it's possible they could make a shirt that just says Standing Stone Games. That seems within their purview. But selling a shirt that has the Lord of the Rings Online in it and any of the imagery from the game runs aground of the fact that they don't have the legal right to do that. So they think. And they were probably right. I'm not a lawyer. They have lawyers, and that is their current approach. They do have occasional giveaways where they'll have meetups where fans can come and socialize with people who work at Standing Stone Games, and they can chat and kibitz. And so the shirt I'm wearing, I got at a meetup in Germany, in Cologne. I don't know, when was I? A couple years ago, I think. So I'm wearing, this was a Before the Shadow shirt. And they're not allowed to sell it, but they are allowed to make them and give them away in at least some limited capacity. So this is not a guarantee, and certainly I wouldn't put yourself out if it costs a lot of money, but if you had the opportunity to go to a meetup or participate in community events where there might be that kind of a giveaway, that could be a way to get something from Lord of the Rings Online. But yeah, saleable merchandise, that's not... saleable merchandise with com sets from the game, that seems unlikely to happen anytime soon. Okay. One thing I was going to point out was... Little Red had found a link to... Where did you send that? I'll link to a Reddit post that did a very nice summary of what Orion talked about. There we go. So, I have found a link. I will pull it on up. Cool. So, I found this to be a very nice summary of all the things that were talked about. This is organized by concept, by topic. And then there are time codes within that to refer back to that video. So, for instance, the coding doors is a nightmare in the game. That happens at 66 minutes. I didn't actually go through to the video. This was such a good summary. I forgot to go through the video, but it's got me curious now. What does Orion say at 66 minutes about doors? I don't know if this will come across at all. My apologies.
Same thing with the rate. We would love to see more openable doors in the Shire. I just want to go on record with most other designers of any game that have doors. Doors are really bad. We hate them. No, the fact is that doors are a coding nightmare. They're a game nightmare. It would be great to be able to go into other people's houses and see how people live. Huh? Yeah. I understand where you're coming from on that. Any plans to add new ways to grow your character?
Okay, so not a lot of detail there. I'm going to bring the volume back down because for some reason that was pretty quiet on my side. Okay, so I don't know. I'm curious how well that came across in the stream because I assume it jittered or was otherwise not very intelligible. But Orion was saying just that doors are difficult. I suspect that the problem that he's talking about would be in refer to doors that are movable. What comes to mind? A couple of things come to mind. First of all, collisions. If a door is opening, what happens if it hits a player who is standing in front of it? Do doors pass through the players or not? If there's you presumably have to make a design decision of what's it better, suspension of disbelief, where it does stop and hit you, but then it's not very usable. You have to maneuver yourself out of the way as it's opening, or it just wishes through your body. In game, we've already seen that when there's a door that is interactable, what happens when two people click on the door at the same time? Does it start to open and then the other person shuts it? Something you'll see in the Haunted Burrow is that there's kind of a cooldown on doors where someone interacts with it, and then for a second or two, anyone else who tries to interact will say, "Oh, it's already in use." I don't know. The Haunted Burrow might be a good case study of the problems that can come up with doors. One of the fun things you can do in the basement of the Haunted Burrow is wait until someone's running around at the very end where they're about to go out and open the wrong door. Because if they brush against that portal, while the door is open, then they get sent back to the start of the basement. And if you're not careful running down that hall, if you're just going at a diagonal, you'll brush against where that portal would be on your way to the actual one. So fun little pranks that you can pull there. But no, Aaron Bard, I don't have any more details on that. I think there's design decisions to be had if you have movable doors, and there are technical constraints. If how they've solved them currently with only one person can interact with the door. If you cause the door to open, it's going to be a few seconds before you can cause it to close. You are doing something with the door that is a worldwide visible event. So that has to be broadcast out to every other player in the area that the state of that door has changed. These are all complications that don't exist with your standard portal that is just, I have walked through the portal by the Holland Gate to Moria. And, I've walked through the portal, and now I'm on the other side of this portal. That's a thing that only affects you, and other people know that you have moved, but they already had to know that you were moving. So I don't know. Those are just things that come to mind, but I don't have any more specifics than that. Okay, so we're going to do a giveaway. Little Redhead is going to go ahead and close the giveaway with that command. Just copy paste that cell. I try to type as little as possible when I'm dealing with MooBot commands.
I just want to make sure I'm copying and pasting the right thing.
Yep, red is closing.
Okay.
Cool. And then Little Redhead's going to do the giveaway draw command. Awesome. And Ivana in chat has been drawn for the giveaway. Please pipe up if you are here, and then Little Redhead will message you with the details. Awesome! So, Little Redhead's going to try to do a whisper, and we'll report back if you have blocked messages from strangers. And congratulations! Okay, I think we've got that straightened out. So, Ivana, let us know if you have any problems redeeming that. Aaron asks, they no longer have giveaways for things like in-game gold or mithril. I don't know about never, but certainly more in my recent experience, the codes have been for things that are redeemable in the in-game store. And while mithril coins are purchasable in the in-game store, so theoretically they could produce a redeemable code for it, they seem to default to LOTRO points or specific items. But because you can convert LOTRO points into mithril coins, they kind of do giveaways for mithril coins. In-game gold, I've never seen a giveaway of in-game gold using a store code like this, but I wonder if part of that is just, is there even a way to buy in-game gold in the store? And I've never tried, but I would guess the answer is no. Ooh, milestones. Oh, this character, right. Money. Right. Coin. Well, that's another one. So there's mithril coins to purchase, but if it's not purchasable in the store, then I'm guessing they wouldn't do store codes, and their current preferred way of doing giveaways is store codes. Ivana says it worked. Hooray! Okay, I feel like while I was dithering on about things, I missed some stuff in chat. I'm just scrolling up a little bit. Kaleri says my dad won a shirt in beta. I think that's awesome. That's a piece of history right there. Ginger said, would love to see Twitch drops for LOTRO. I think the developers at SSG have mentioned that they did not feel like the return on investment was there for them to work on integrating that technology. But I'd have to defer to them, of course. They, at some point they have to look at it and say, what are the gains, what are the downsides? And the downsides are usually time and money spent doing a thing, and they hope that the upsides pay for that. Ginger thinks special items only from Twitch could bring more people back to LOTRO like in the heyday. I think Standing Stone Games probably pays people to think about monetization, the idea of getting more money from people so that they can do more things. Increase some subscriber count, increasing purchases in the store, that kind of thing. Those people, I would expect to have far more expertise in those areas than I do. So, sometimes I think, oh man, it would be cool if they, but then I have to assume they've had that thought, and either they're not doing it yet because it hasn't bubbled up at the top of the stack, or they've just decided it's not a good cost-benefit analysis. Okay, there's a new giveaway! Hooray! Looks like it's going to be a pig in a blanket housing decoration. Cool. The Pig in the Blanket housing decoration, there's a link there if you don't know what it is, and do make sure you spell giveaway correctly. Moobot will not spell check for you. I see Abris has fixed that. Awesome. Cool. Hey, what are you doing not cooking? Okay. Sorry, I didn't want to miss what people said. Little Red had said, Court also mentioned RE merch is possible, but there's a big approval process because SSG is interacting with or associated with other companies that have a finger in the pie. I'm paraphrasing. Okay. Awesome. F3 asks, in terms of programming, is it hard to add an item to work with weapon auras or VFX in general? That's something I don't have any direct experience with. UI stuff, for my day job, I write code, and some of it is user-facing code, like an actual user will see it and push buttons on it and whatnot. And some of it is back-end code, and it's only talking with other software on on the computer and is never talking to a human. And it's so much easier to write code that only talks to other code. When you're dealing with humans, you have to deal with, does it look good? Is it easy to use? What happens if they push the buttons out of order? So UI stuff is just feels so much harder to me. And then you have a step beyond that where you have graphical elements in a game, and it blows my mind that anything ever works ever. That being said, I would assume that a game like LOTRO Plugin Online, there's some sort of framework for when you add a weapon, there are, you add a set of information about that weapon that enables things like auras to work with it. So once you've introduced the concept of auras to a game, you then, whenever you submit a weapon or a model or whatever, you would bundle extra information that says, here's how an aura would work with this thing. And the only gotcha is that if that's needed information and that information isn't available for anything that was added pre-auras, for example, and I assume when you say auras, you're referring specifically to like the weapon auras that we see being released with various expansions, like the Fateful Thunder weapon aura or the weapon aura of Orcsbane, for instance. So if the idea of auras comes in and you need extra information for a weapon to work with an aura, then cool, you would just say, hey, if that information is available, activate the aura. But then you have a non-zero number of weapons that would have been added before that concept that you kind of have to backfill that information. And maybe it's something that you could automate. It feels like the kind of thing you would toss an intern at for a month and be like, go fix all the weapons. It doesn't necessarily take a lot of technical expertise. It really depends on the system, and I have no details on that. But yeah, that'd be the kind of thing where maybe they introduce auras and it works for everything from then on, but then it only slowly works on older things as they backfill whatever extra information is needed. That being said, yeah, I lack details on that. So a lot of times it's just musing on things based off what I do know, but I'm missing out in my professional life on 3D game programming. I get to just write plugins that work alongside of this and be happy. Ginger said you used to be able to buy gold trinkets that could be resold as gold. Interesting. Yeah, if there's stuff like that in the LOTRO store, then you would be able to presumably make a redemption code for it. But I think a lot of people are very excited to get some of these cosmetic pets or cosmetic housing items that you can't get anywhere else. One of the things that you have in-game is a pet collection display. That's a very big version of it. And whenever you click on one of these pets, it will tell you where you get it. And some of these things are only available for participation in community events like this. So if we go to Corgi, we were going to Spotted Corgi. Available from participating in community events. So if you are a collector, if one of your main ways of interfacing with the game is being a completionist with cosmetic pets or completionist with housing items, then this is your time to shine, right? Like this is how you get the thing. There's nothing in game that you can do about to get this. You have to get it with one of these meta events. So. I think there's enough people like that who really appreciate getting access to them or just want the cosmetic pet because it's cute or for whatever reason that I think SSG is happy to do some of these special things. In-game gold, depending on your playstyle, is pretty easy to come by. Having that be the reward might be a little disappointing for people who have lots of in-game gold but would like more cosmetic pets. One of the things you can't do in this game, rightfully so, I think, is convert in-game gold into LOTRO points or mithril coins. And while it might be cool if there were a couple items in the store where you could spend like 1,000 in-game gold and get a cool thing, I think the nature of the economy of a lot of games, and LOTRO is one of these, is very inflationary, where there's just not a lot of gold rattling around in the economy when a server just starts. But a server like Laurel, that's been around for a while, you can see stuff go on the auction for like 3,000 gold, and it's just not a big deal. And so the longer a server's been around, the more money is kind of sloshing around, and the more things that you can do with that money, like in the LOTRO store, the less they would see like people spending LOTRO points and mithril coins. Let's see. Aaron Bart says, does SSG have a volunteer program at all? SSG has an alpha server called Palantir, and they select participants from the community, and they occasionally rotate them out. And those people get early access to new features and concepts. It's a lot like the, my goodness, Bullroarer server. It's a lot like the Bullroarer server, which is a beta server, but even before that. So these people are saying things while they're still very rough and not ready for public consumption, and they're giving feedback and interacting with it. And the Palantir program, I think you can apply to be in it, but I'm sure there's a very long wait list for it. There'll be more information about the Palantir program up on the LOTRO forums. That's probably the closest thing they have to a volunteer program, because I don't think anyone on Palantir gets paid, and I believe you will be required to sign an NDA, non-disclosure agreement, if you participate, saying you won't be sharing anything you learn there with anyone who's not SSG. And there are people who don't do that, and then they get banned from participating in Palantir for life, and that's sad. So you definitely want to be careful and mindful when you're getting access to this advanced information. It says, with the number of things that can go wrong in software, I'm often astounded at how much actually works. Yeah, I'm 100% with you. I do software engineering as a day job, and it boggles my mind how much things work that you're just like, how does that even work? Aaron Bart says, perhaps you can solve a mystery for a friend and a friend and I encountered. We went riding down the greenway. He saw my horse as gray, and I saw it as brown. Further, he saw me as a length and a half ahead, whereas I saw him right on top of my mount. What is happening there program-wise? Yeah, absolutely. There's two separate things there. First of all, I would guess that you were on a stable master mount, not one of your personal mounts. Double check me if, correct me if I'm wrong, but I would guess you both got on a stable master mount and were riding and had left at about the same time. So, secondly, when you move in... Cool, Aaron Bart says correct. Awesome. So when you mount a specific mount from your collections panel, other people will see that same mount, barring like a glitch in the game. Other people will see that same mount. Every once in a while, there'll be a little bit of lag or delay in resolution. You'll see some like standing there and the horse is like intersecting their body because they haven't elevated yet. But in general, I get on my Tidebreaker steed, everyone else will see me on the Tidebreaker speed. But recently, and I say recently, in the last 3 years or so, they introduced a sort of a randomization element to stable masters and their mounts. And this was just meant to give the game a little bit more, a little bit more fun replayability aspect to it. So the stable master, their appearances, their genders, maybe even their races, and definitely their clothing can swap around. So the same, when you walk up to a stable master, you won't necessarily see the same exact model every single time. And the mount that you get on can also be a little bit more random. But as you are seeing, that randomness is done at the client level. The server says, hey, you're on a stable master horse, roll a die. And the server says to your friend, hey, they're on a stable master horse, roll a die. Now, if I was implementing this for kind of world consistency, I would have been very tempted to roll the die on the server and then tell the clients what the result is. But that does add complexity. Now you have to tell everyone, and there could be 50 people standing near you in Bree, and now the server has to tell 50 people what your horse is, instead of just saying, hey, they're on a horse. They're on a stable master horse, figure it out. And it, for most times, most places, just telling the client, figure it out, that definitely makes life a little bit easier. But it does mean that you and a friend can compare notes and be like, what do you mean I'm on a brown horse? So I think when they introduced the variable look and feel for the stable masters, they also introduced some variability in the mounts. And that's what I would expect. You can also have the same thing with the stable masters. You can walk up to the stable master and see a very different appearance from your friend who's interacting with the same stable master because, and again, I think that roll a die to see what the look is happens at the client level. So you could actually have two different clients running on your machine, and you could probably see different versions of that same stable master. Aaron Bart says, I like the variable stable masters, not so much the mounts. I do really like it when I get on a stable master mount in like Rivendell and I get on an elk who's got all the horns going. That's fun. Aaron says, can they solve this with fellowship linkages? They could solve this any number of ways. Like I said, they could make their randomization happen at the server level instead of at the client level. The real question is it worth programmer time to do such a thing? Because whenever you're writing code, the easiest thing to do is to make use of a mechanic that already existed. And so if they already had a mechanic for the client kind of choosing a random view to present you with from a selection of choices, then it would be so easy to just use that mechanism or modify it just a little bit and drop it in for what you're doing. That thing's already tested, all the bugs are hopefully already found, and you know it works, and so you can just use it in a new context. Versus, oh, we were doing stuff on the client, but now we want to do stuff on the server, so now we have to introduce a new system for that, and now we have to introduce a system for telling all the clients for that, and all the clients have to take that random information from the server instead of generating it locally. And you have to ask, how much extra effort is it going to be to write it, to test it, to go back and fix things after bugs were found after it was released that you hadn't found, and what is the benefit versus what are the costs? And the cost, when you're writing new software, the cost is always pretty high, and the benefit for something that, for something like Stable Master mounts, maybe it's not there. So I could see why they might not have done it for consistency across all clients. But anyway, can it be fixed? Of course it can be fixed. All it takes is time and money, and the willingness to do so. Software is malleable, and you can make it do whatever you want if you're willing to pay for it. And they just might not be willing to at this point. Or maybe it's on their to-do list. They have a very long to-do list, as many software companies have. The things that we would like to do list is almost always longer than the things we have time to do list. And so all clients seeing the same amount when you leave from a stable master, especially when they may have data where the majority of users are on Swift stable mounts that are going to vanish in 10 seconds. So if 90% of their user base is most of the time using Swift mounts and they're just going to vanish, then they may be like, eh. So, looking into the data, how many people is this going to affect? And you sort of start from there. But yeah, the underlying, can it be fixed? Of course it can be fixed. And Bart says, would this complicate the lag issue? Unknown. I wouldn't have any insight to that. You would hope not. But one of the biggest causes for server performance, my understanding, one of the biggest causes for server performance degradation is lots of people being in the same place doing a thing. Like, back before they were compensating for it, events like Weatherstock, you could get so many people into a single location that it would cause server degradation or even crashes. Think of it like a phone tree. If you are trying to tell the people in your house, hey, I made dinner, come eat. You'd have to notify 5 people. If you're trying to tell everyone who lives in your neighborhood, hey, I made dinner, and your way of doing that is to call each one of them and say, hey, I made dinner, hey, I made dinner. You can imagine the more people you have to tell that you made dinner, the harder that goes. And if now everyone is trying to tell everyone that they made dinner, you can imagine how much more work is happening. If 10 people are trying to talk to, the other 9 people, that one person has to talk to 9 people, and then the next person next to them also has to talk to 9 people, the next person also has to talk to 9 people. It's not quite like that under the covers, but you can imagine the more people in an area, the more people who are reporting to the same machine, hey, I've got information. That same machine has to distribute information back out to each player. Every time you move, you tell the server, hey, I've moved, and the server tells everyone else, hey, they moved. And so the more people in an area, the bigger the load on a specific server that's handling that. Now, the other question, why were you showing up in different positions? Like, oh, I think I'm right on top of you, and they see you further behind or further ahead. Whenever you move, same thing, whenever you move in the game, you tell the server, hey, I think I moved 5 steps forward. And the server says, cool, I agree with you. And your client says, awesome. And then you say, oh, I think I moved another 5 steps forward. And the server says, cool, I agree with you. And if the server's ever like, no, you didn't, you hit a wall, that's where you get that rubber banding effect. You'll see this a lot when you're on, say, a war mount in the Shire, where you think you cleared a hedge jumping over it, and then the server's like, nope, you did not clear that hedge. And so the server's the ultimate authority on where you are, but it's not instantaneous. And it might not even be a constant supply of information. It might bundle the information together when you're on a stable master mount. But in general, when you move, you tell the server you think you moved. The server will tell other people if it thinks you did move, and it'll tell you, yes, you did move. And so there's a necessary delay that happens between you moving and another person knowing that you moved. And it all settles out. If everyone stops moving, it all sorts itself out very quickly, right? But if two people start running at the same time, simultaneity being a different problem in the world. But if you and someone else far away from you start running in synchronized, you both start running. By the time the server tells you that the other person has started running, you will have moved some distance away. Ambard says, I had an alt killed on a horse race due to rubber banding. Hadn't reached level 20 yet, so a bit annoying. Oh no! Yeah, those deeds, as there's a reason in Deed Tracker, I've marked them as like not actively available, and they don't count towards the overall deed count, because, oh my goodness, they were an interesting design choice, and I'm glad SSG has moved away from that kind of deed for the most part. There's a couple others on Legendary servers in the Rise of Isengard? No, Ostenolf, whatever's before Rise of Isengard. Anyway, now I'm curious. In their absence. There's two deeds on Legendary servers for In Their Absence where there's a maximum level cap, and so as soon as the next expansion comes out, those deeds can't be done anymore. So like you've got 6 deeds in the game where you just, if you time out, oops, never mind, you can't do them anymore. It's very sad.
Do you want to announce the giveaway anymore? I'm going to pull the giveaway.
Okay, so next giveaway. This is a Pig in the Blanket. It is closing shortly, so if you would like a Pig in the Blanket, hit ! giveaway to enter. And Little Redhead will draw that shortly.
Otherwise, it's time to draw a winner RH.
Oh, that's funny. Here, let's go ahead and fix that. Okay, cool. So, Ginger says, been having a lot of rubber banding on stable horse from Southbury to Northbury and vice versa, more so than normal this week. That's interesting. I would imagine, depending on your server, that Bree is a more common area for people to hang out. So again, when you are getting near other players, that creates more server load for, because you're saying, oh, I'm here, and then it has to figure out who is near you, who needs to know that you are moving. And so there's a exponential cost, a polynomial cost for the more people in an area, the more complicated the calculation of who's near you, who needs to know that you just moved. Okay, tell them you just moved, and oh, they're moving, tell you that they're moving. So riding through a place like Bree, if there's a bunch of people standing around in Bree, would definitely involve more server communication and activity than riding through a completely deserted town like, I don't know, Estelden. Okay. So the entry is done. We have a winner. Dame Hypatia, are you still here? Well, I just saw you in chat, so I assume you're still here. Little Redhead will message you with that code. Thank you. Ambard says, what other than level cap differentiates Legendary from standard servers? You mentioned Deed. Yeah, so Legendary servers, the main thing is that the content is released in stages. On Treebeard, it's about every 5 to 6 months. The next expansion, give or take, is made available. And so until then, if you go into an area that is of the map that is too high level, so for instance, just before the Helm's Deep expansion was released, we were limited to just Eastern Rohan, Entwash Vale, Sutcrofts, and so on. And if you crossed over into the Broad Acres of the Kingstead, you would get a message saying you've entered an area that you don't have permission for. I'm paraphrasing the message. I don't remember it exactly. You've entered a bad area. If you don't get out, you'll be kicked out. And you have 5 to 10 seconds to get yourself out, and then it will return you to the starting spot of your race. So for humans and Bjornings and hobbits, you are zipped back to Archet, for instance, which is inconvenient because Who wants to be an archet? I think it's even worse for Dowerhand dwarves because they get sent back to like Morga or something. Mortar. The other M word. Anyway, so that's the big thing, is that the content is released in stages. There also are some quests that are available on legendary servers that are not available on standard servers, and there are some deeds as well that were available on all servers, but specifically you can only complete those deeds if you are at level 65, and that is the cap level for the server. And so, practically speaking, they're only available on legendary servers because all the standard servers have a higher level cap than 65. So they're not specifically legendary server only deeds, they're just practically legendary server only deeds. Okay. So yeah, gender, I mean, one thing I like to do is just avoid riding through Bree unless I'm going for a specific thing. I use a lot of travel to personal housing, and then using the far-ranging stable master to get to places. And while they don't have a connection to West Bree, they do have a connection to the festival grounds. And from there, you can just use a horse to get back to West Bree instantly. So I'm a big fan of skipping. You can go to South Bree if you're heading out from there. I go to West Bree a lot for things on that end of town. And then I don't usually use a stable master to connect between them if I don't have a reason to. Okay. There's a giveaway. There's a new giveaway for a sleeping cat gray housing item. If you would like such a thing and haven't already won one, type ! giveaway in chat to enter. Awesome. Oh, Agatha thinks, or says, if they finish the intro, I believe Saudax says, do Danger survive to Arid Luin? Okay. I feel like once upon a time, that might not have been true, but either way, either they fixed it or that's I'm misremembering. Okay, I think I'm more or less caught up. Oh, Aaron Bart asked polynomial. Yeah, so there are some ways of gauging how fast complexity rises. Let me see if I can find a quick little reference. Awesome. Okay, so this is a Wikipedia article on time complexity. And this is a thing to think about when you're talking software engineering. It might apply to real life as well, but it comes into play especially when you're talking the big numbers that you can deal with in computers. Agatha says, I have a character forever stuck in Mordor because I did a Dangerous Survive before I completely finished the intro. Haven't opened a ticket yet. Fantastic. So, time complexity. Let's say I have a deck of cards and I want to sort the cards. Time complexity, and in software you'll hear this called big O notation, and that's because you use a big O in your notation, like that. So, big O notation is a thing that you hear, and there's probably a whole separate page for that. Awesome. But in general, if you are trying to sort 52 cards, how long would it take to do that using different algorithms? As a classic way to think about algorithmic complexity. And one of the basic things is, well, if you're going to sort the 52 cards, you're going to have to look at each of the cards at least once. So you know you're going to have to do at least 52 things. Oh, it's an ace of spades. Do something with it. Oh, it's a two of clubs. Do something with it. So there's no way getting around that you have to do at least 52 operations. Technically 51. You know, if you lucked out, the last one you wouldn't have to look at it. You'd know what it was, kind of. But basically 52. But if what you're doing, if your algorithm involves comparing cards, like, oh, I've got the ace of clubs and the three of clubs. Cool, I know how to put those. Okay, now I've got the two of clubs. Was it bigger than the ace of clubs? Yes. Is it smaller than the three of clubs? Yes. So now you're comparing cards against other cards multiple times. And now you start talking about increased algorithmic complexity. So some classic ones that we talk about are linear, where it just relates to the number of the items, or polynomial, where it's related to the number of items, maybe squared, n squared, which we can see up here in the graph on the right. So if you have 10 items, then you have to do 100 comparisons. Or n cubed. If you have 10 items, you have to do 1,000 comparisons. Then there's exponential, where maybe you have to do 2 to the power of a thing. So if you have 10 items, you have to do 2 to the 10th comparisons. Whereas if you have 20 things, you have to do 2 to the 20th things. And this graph is a comparison of how quickly the time it takes to, or the number of operations it takes to do a thing grows. And in general, you have a fixed number of operations your computer can do. So if the number of operations goes up, the time it takes goes up. And in this day and age, the power consumption for it goes up, which is a big concern both for ecological terms, but also for portable devices like a phone, where you maybe don't want it to heat up like the surface of the sun in your hand and also take all your battery power down for a single sorting operation. So, it's kind of the gold standard for sorting algorithms you'll hear is n log n, which is n times the logarithm of n, which is kind of the best you can do for sorting operations. And we see n log n down here. We see the square root of n down here. We see n itself. We see n log n up here, n squared, and so on. So these get progressively worse. The sharper the slope, or the steeper the slope on this graph, the worse the algorithmic performance. So when I say polynomial, I mean that, and polynomial might not even be right. It could actually be linear. It really depends on the underlying code that's doing this. But when you send out a message to the server that says, I have just moved, the server needs to figure out who is nearby you and who needs to know that message and to send that message. And so if there's 20 people more, then the server has to tell those 20 people that you just moved in addition to everyone else. But it goes both ways. So if you are moving and all the 20 of those people are moving, then you're telling the server I've moved, it tells everyone else, but it's also calculating that for everyone else who's moved and telling you and everyone else that they have moved. I'm amazed it works. MMOs are wild, man. Okay. Awesome. So, reminder, there is a giveaway for Sleeping Great Cat open, and hey, we might even look at some plugin stuff. Why not? Durbin says, concerning Deep Tracker, I got a new PC and I'm trying to copy my progress from the old PC to the new one. Awesome. Congrats on the new PC. I used the LOTRO Companion deed completion website walkthrough, okay, but it didn't give me the option to import completed deeds on the new PC. You used a USB with import data on it, but this is from 2021. Is there an easier way, or did you do something wrong? What a great question. This is something plugin developers don't spend a lot of time educating community on. I'm sure there's some references out there, but one of the things a consumer of plugins you should know is that the standard location for this is your Documents folder, Lord of the Rings Online, plugin data. And whenever you are moving to a new computer and you want to have all of your plugin information, what you want to do is you want to go to your Documents, the Lord of the Rings Online, plugin data, and you want to find everything that's in there and make sure it exists also in the new location. So your new computer probably also has a Documents folder, the Lord of the Rings Online. You want to make sure it has a plugin data folder and that all of these files are also over there. This is a one-time operation. You're going to copy it over, but from then on, if you're using your plugins on that new computer, they're saving their data to this new location, so it's not going to update the old location. You can play games with this. For instance, you could have your plugin data stored in the cloud, like with Dropbox or Google Drive or something, so that it's kind of automatically synchronized between computers. But I think as long as you only ever play the game on one computer at a time, and when you're done with it, you kind of wait a few seconds, and then maybe you go back to the old computer and you fire it up, that kind of a solution could work. Where I'd be concerned about is if you have it open in multiple computers at the same time, then one of them will write to the file, the other will write to the file, and you'll have data loss. So just be aware, whichever computer you're playing on, it's only saving to that plugin data folder, and that's kind of your latest and greatest plugin data. So if you play on multiple machines, you kind of need to come up with how a solution for how am I going to synchronize the data in my plugin data directory. If you're on a home network, this is pretty doable. You can copy files from one machine to another. But if you're in different locations, that could be a lot harder. So you kind of there needs to be an appropriate solution for your scenario. But a lot of us, we just upgrade to a new computer. We stop playing on the old computer because the new one's better, and that just makes it really easy. You just copy the plugin data folder over, and you're done. And Brett says, sorry for stealing all your airtime. Thanks for all the answers. No worries. No worries. Like I say, questions are welcome. If all we do here is do giveaways and talk about Lord of the Rings Online, then we've had a successful stream. If we do any plugin development, even better. But we've got until like March to get this Festival Buddy plugin done. Plenty of time. So, Turbinator? Let me know if that makes sense, if what I just said was understandable and maybe not too fast, and give it a try if you can. Take those plugin data files from the old machine, copy them over, and see if that doesn't resolve your issue. Task Pumpkin says, alas, I have to leave, but good luck with to everyone. Awesome. Well, I'm glad you were able to join us. Agartha says, sharing your documents folder is very risky. I've had one computer write stuff into userpreferences.ini that was incompatible with the other computer. Happened twice to me. Yeah, I would be very hesitant to share the entire Lord of the Rings Online folder. For one thing, I have so many screenshots, and I wouldn't want to burn 300 megabytes of cloud storage on my screenshots folders. But the plugin data folder itself, I do recommend to everyone, regardless of whatever else you do, back up your plugin data folder from time to time. So for instance, my backups, I make them here, plugin data backups, and you can see I've got backups going, I've got one already this year, and I try to do about once a month, and I just have backups going to end of 2021. That's when I was like, oh wait, I'm tired of data loss. I should back these things up. This is especially important if you do plugin development, because sometimes you will write code in a plugin that just absolutely trashes one of your save files. It's very inconvenient, and it's very nice if you can just restore something recent. Even if it's not completely up to date, it's close enough. And if you have to go back to a version from 2021, that is frustrating. So just maybe first week of the month, whatever, or maybe you do a monthly kinship run or something. Just whatever you need to trigger your thought of, oh yeah, I'm just going to go ahead and back these up. It's nice if you can do it while Lord of the Rings Online is not using them. So either you're logged off or you unloaded all your plugins. Just because it is possible for plugins to asynchronously decide to write to a file. Most of them do it when you unload the plugin, but DTracker, for instance, a few seconds after you stop completing deeds, or you started completing deeds and then you haven't done any more, it just writes out your latest file to capture that, so that if you did have a program crash, you don't lose any information. So yeah, unload all your plugins or just have Lord of the Rings Online off. Then copy everything from your plugin data directory to wherever you're backing it up, and just rest comfortable in the knowledge that you'll only lose that data if something takes out your entire hard drive, in which case you've got bigger problems. So yeah, Agartha, I agree. I wouldn't share the Lord of the Rings Online folder itself, but synchronizing other stuff is very doable. For instance, Little Redhead and I, for a while at least, were sharing our music folders. And the way we did that is we had a batch file. And the batch file, you just run it, and it copies everything over to the shared Dropbox folder we were using. And then the other person would run, we wait for that to synchronize, and the other person would run the copy from batch file that would just copy everything from Dropbox and put it in. That way, if one of us made changes, we could push it out and then pull it out. And it's sort of a poor man's version of source control. Now that I'm thinking about it, though, if you're comfortable with source control, pop a Git repository into your music directory, and then just do occasional pushes out and pulls from to and from the repository. But poor man's version of that, yeah, copied to a cloud synced location. No, keep going. Turpin says, I don't use Dropbox or OneDrive. Wasn't sure how well that would work with LOTRO. I think the key thing is when you are running Lord of the Rings Online, most plugins will read from their plugin data files when they start up, and when you unload the plugins, they will write to those files. And they do not care if you've written to the files in the meantime. And this is a classic problem I have as a plugin developer, is I'll make a change to a save file, but the plugin's already loaded. So when I unload the plugin, it overwrites that save file. And then I have to make my changes again. So if you are only running the game on one of your machines, then when you unload the plugins, usually by logging out or exiting the game, they would write to that file, to that directory, and then your synchronization tool of choice, like a Dropbox, would copy it to the cloud, it would copy down to other machines, and that's fine. But there is a delay. So if you close your machine and then immediately launch the client on another machine, you could have plugins that are loading in old data, stale data, before that synchronization happens, and then when you unload, you overwrite those synchronization changes, and Dropbox dutifully brings them back and overwrites your good files with bad information. So I would be concerned about doing that without really investing in what's my mental process for making sure I don't do this. But the easiest thing is if you get a new computer and you just stop playing on the old one most of the time, you're kind of set. Okay. Where it says, this is good info as I travel with a laptop and syncing LOTRO after has become a concern. Yeah, if you're traveling with a laptop, it's good to have a way to do synchronization. Something like source control is actually really rough on plugin data files because these are... I've gone to the wrong place. These are... I should unload and reload. Okay, that'll write out the file. These are just Lua tables dumped out in textual form, and there's no ordering that happens when they're written out. So that minor changes can result in very different files every time, which would mean if you were committing these to source control as your method of synchronization, you would have lots of big diffs every time. But it would be a way to do it. Oh. Agatha says, modern Windows will set documents to OneDrive by default. That's how I got into that predicament in the first place. I should have known better. Absolutely. If you do not realize that you have a synchronized documents folder, that can get you into problems. F3R says... Is there a code reason or a programming-related complication to the collection panel not being account-wide? So I think you're talking about this collection panel here. And I think what you're saying is that you can only look at the state of the collection panel for your current character. Little Redhead would like us to remember that there is a giveaway reminder for the Sleeping Gray Cat. It's going to be drawn... momentarily. So this is your last warning to hit exclamation point giveaway before it is giveawayed.
10 seconds.
10 seconds, she says. Okay. 5 seconds. All right. Well, I think at this point, anyone who wants that Sleeping Gray Cat has put it into chat. So go! Cool. All right, Task Pumpkin. Was Task Pumpkin the one who said they had to step away?
Oh,
They did. Well, Task Pumpkin, if you step back into chat, you've got about 5 seconds, maybe 10 seconds to pop up and say, I'm here, I'm here. And then we'll go ahead and redraw for one of the other people who entered. And I'm going to get some fresh water.
Oh, that's too bad.
Done. Okay, I'm not seeing any task pumpkin. Let's go ahead and redraw, since they did say that they were leaving, which was nice of them to let us know. So, Crispy Chicken, are you still here? If so, pop up in chat and we'll get that to you.
Yay, and she has.
Okay, Crispy Chicken's there. So, Little Redhead's going to message you with your code and then start the next giveaway, I think, if we're going to do at least one more. Okay, so, is there a code reason or program related complication to the collection panel not being account-wide? So I think what you're saying is you're asking why the collections panel doesn't give you an option to look at characters, other characters on this server or on other servers. I think there's very few things in Lord of the Rings that are truly account-wide. Your LOTRO points is one of them. But besides that, there's very few things that are truly account-wide. In general, most things are server-wide at best. And you'll see things like your mithril coins are server-wide, but I don't think they're account-wide. You'll see things in your wallet that are shareable across the server. It says account shared for mithril coins. It says account shared for Bottle of Ale, but what it really means is server shared. And so it's important when you're talking, especially to plugin developers, who do keep in mind the differences between account-wide things and server-wide things. When someone says, oh, why isn't this account-wide, it's good to kind of double-check and say, well, do you mean account-wide or do you mean server-wide? And so I guess that would be my first question, F3R, is do you mean server-wide or truly account-wide? But either way, the answer is always, the answer is probably, first of all, nothing exists until someone writes it. So a collections panel that shows you your current state, once that is written, there's nothing about that will show the state of another character or a character on another server. But critically, the design choices in LOTRO kind of consistently favor pulling down less information from the server until it is actually needed. So, for example, one of the things that you may have noticed is that when you open your vault for the first time after a while, there's a slight delay. Let's see if I can trigger it. Nope, it's been, how about my personal? How about my wardrobe? Okay, no delays there. But there's often a slight delay, especially if there's a lot of stuff in there, and that's because, by default, when you log in, the servers have not actually sent you the information for what is in your vault, or what is in your personal vault, your housing vault, your wardrobe, and that's because there's no point in sending that information if you're not going to use it. So, LOTRO has sort of a design philosophy, or at least has in the past, where they don't send you information unless you are going to use it. It could also be why when you first open your Stable Master view, you can kind of see the dots populating in kind of oldest to newest. And the more Stable Master locations you've discovered in the world, the more obvious this is. On my completionist character on Evernight, for instance, it could take multiple seconds for the whole map to kind of, the dots to fill in over the whole map because there were so many of them. Now, this could be a delay in UI rendering, but it is probably because the server wasn't fetched from, the data wasn't fetched from the server until you asked for it. Because again, there's no point in dumping this information to your client if you never click the button. And if you do click the button, well, now you maybe have an extra second to wait for it, but then you have that information until, for a while. Now, the fact that it does redraw those dots every time you open the window suggests that at least some of the delay is in the actual drawing of the dots. But even plugins don't take that long to draw that many dots. So some of the delays probably comes waiting for it from the server, I would guess. So, is there a reason why we don't have information for all the characters? Well, the reason is no one has written the code to do it, and you would need a mechanism to request the information for a character that is not logged in. And you'd have to ask, is there even a mechanism for doing that? And the answer might be no. Now, could it cache that information locally? When you log out, it could save that information and maybe you could query it from another character. Sure, in software, anything is possible. But is it, for a corporation that is thinking about doing these things, you have to ask, who's going to do it, how much time and effort is going to take, how many bugs could it introduce, and how bad could those bugs be, and what's the payoff? Like, what's the benefit? Is there a lot of people who want this kind of thing? Now, plugins can bridge the gap in a lot of ways. A plugin could show you pets that you have, and a plugin could show you that information for all your characters. And one of the things you'll notice if you have a lot of plugins that have account-wide information is some of those files can get really big. Okay, in case you didn't notice in chat, Little Redhead has opened up the last giveaway for tonight for our 5th anniversary of playing LOTRO giveaways here. The Spotted Corgi Pet. So if you would like a pet, and this is a one-time use code, and it binds to your character. So if you already have it on one character, and you haven't won it today here in chat, you could use that code on a different character. So hit !giveaway in chat if you want to have a chance of winning that. So, some plugins, and let me go ahead and pull up actually some of my backups here. So, when I go into plugin data and my main account here, if I go into all servers, reminders is one of the big ones that has a lot of data for all servers. And the main file here is 2.5 megabytes of text. And if this was stored in a binary format, it would be a little bit smaller. But there's 2 megabytes of data here. And that's just for the reminders plugin. And so, you know, there are some people who have dozens or even hundreds of characters scattered across all of the LOTRO servers. And you would have to kind of take that into account of how much data are we willing to store? What does it look like to store that? How do we know that it's valid data, that it's not, are you willing, as a user of this hypothetical system, are you willing to see data that is not correct because you played it on multiple computers and on this other computer you got stuff, but it's wasn't cached locally on the first computer? Would you be willing to see out-of-date data, or are you looking for a system that actively goes and says, hey, what's the information for this other character that's not even logged in? And now you need a mechanism for doing that. It snowballs, right? Like the design decision to show more than one character's worth of information here, there's a lot of work you have to do to support it and to justify it. And to make it a reasonable experience for the people who are trying to use it without making a bad experience for other people, all of that. So, the short answer is, why don't we do it? Because no one has wanted to do it, or thought to do it, and or had the time and budget to do it. But we as players of the game don't actually know which it is. Aaron Barr says, clarification. So if I add a new pet to Petstable on my laptop, shut down and open my PC the next day, Petstable. It's a plugin. Petstable. I don't know. Little Redhead seems to think that's a funny way to say Petstable. If I added a new pet to my Petstable on my laptop, shut down, it's the plugin called Petstable, I know. Open my PC the next day, it will or will not show the same change on my PC. By default, Aaron Bard, the answer is no. Your plugin data files are local files on your machine, and when you change them there by using a plugin and then unloading the plugin or logging out of your character, the changes sit only on your machine until you or a proxy copy them to another place. Now, the proxy might be something like a Dropbox or other cloud storage, or it might be you using a batch file to copy them over. But in general, the default is no. They do not get copied over. I hope that answers your question. Depending on your fluency with different computer concepts, you might be able to get away with a simple batch file, calling robocopy to copy things across the network. Or you may be more comfortable with just copying them onto a memory stick and then manually moving them over. Like there's different ways to make this happen. Aaron Bart says, I chose that plugin just to hear you say Pestable. Well, I appreciate you leaning into my quirks. That's excellent. So, yeah. So one thing that you can do if you are in a home network environment is it is possible for your computer to talk to another computer in that network pretty easily to copy things across the network. But if they're not on the same network, maybe one's on Wi-Fi and one's plugged into a router, or one's at the home and one's at the office, these things can complicate that, make it a little bit harder to make that happen. You say memory stick is how you've been managing? Absolutely. Other thing you can do, depending on how many files you've got, is something like Google Drive, where you just toss them up and then you pull them down. But that feels a little clunky, even compared to a memory stick. So yeah, memory stick is fine, but you do have to remember to do it. And it's just kind of up to you how much synchronization you want to do between the two machines manually. Amber says, thank you for those suggestions. Yeah, absolutely. For people who have an FTP server out there that they have access to, something you could do is have a batch file that wraps around Lord of the Rings Online, where you run that batch file instead. And after Lord of the Rings Online exits, it then goes and does an FTP session where it copies all of your plugin data files up to a specific location. But again, that same batch file, before it launches Lord of the Rings Online, would FTP your plugin files down. So it would synchronize down, then run Lord of the Rings Online, and then when it exits, it would synchronize those back up. It's kind of a homegrown version of cloud storage. And then as long as you use that script, that batch file, on each of your machines, then they would go through that process of fetching, playing, and restoring. But the problem that we've seen is that plugin files can get stupid big. Like I said, my Reminders plugin is 2.5 megs, and Reminders does a series of backups where it saves it to backup 1, backup 2, backup 3, backup 4, backup 5, 6, 7. And so we can see Reminders itself is 20 megabytes. And if your connection is not particularly speedy, uploading and downloading 20 megs just for Reminders might be a little bit more than you're willing to tolerate. And that size is going to be very variable based off of how much you use a plugin. Reminders stores the names of quests that you have seen before, so that it knows whether things are repeatable quests or not. And so that takes up a lot, proportional to the number of quests that you've completed. The plugin data for all of my accounts here is 64 megs, and we can see Reminders is a third of that. Okay. Give away a reminder, we're going to give away that spotted corgi shortly. Lord Sack does encourage someone to adopt the corgi. Do we even have a corgi on this character? Let's find out. Corgi, nope. I have no corgi mounts. Nope, I have a chestnut corgi. Good enough. Let's take a look at that. Wow, that's adorable. Lord Zach says he searched him out. I do that all the time. It's pretty bad. It's like, why don't I find any corgis in my stable masters? I don't know. Okay. And we've renamed it to be Dutch. Excellent. And Bard's glad you're not the only one who does that. Absolutely. Lord Zach says, hello, we're in Rohan. I saw the later stuff first. Yes, we are. Over here on Treebeard, we've gotten to the Helm's Deep expansion, and I really just love the look and feel of Edoras and Meduseld in Lord of the Rings Online, or Edoras, or however the in-game and some people pronounce it, but I grew up hearing and thinking of it as Edoras, and I can't get it out of my head. Anyway, I really like the look and feel of it, and there's just a stable thing here that you can get on the roof of, and Hobbit's natural places on roofs, I think. So here we are. So Aaron Bard, you're managing your plugin data with a memory stick. That's awesome. George asks, giveaways done? Nope, we have not yet drawn it. We'll draw it here in a couple of minutes probably, or if Little Redhead gets impatient, sooner. So Aaron Bard, the one thing I would say is that if you are comfortable with batch files, you might consider having a batch file that does the copying instead of having to go into Explorer and find the files and go into plugin data and copy it manually. You could have a program that does copy. And if you are comfortable with batch files, but you don't know about Robocopy, I would highly recommend checking out Robocopy. It's a tool that's included in Windows, I assume. Robocopy. Yeah, it's a tool that's included in Windows nowadays, although I think once upon a time it was like a third-party tool. And it's very good at cloning directories, making the source and the destination appear identical. It understands recursive copying, and it can even, if your files in one place lack something that exists in the other place, it can even go about mirroring them exactly, so it deletes extra files. So it's fantastic. And it even calls it out here. If you do the mirroring, that can delete files because you're making them identical, even if there were extra files over there. So Robocopy is an excellent tool to look into if you're doing basic file copying from point to point and you want to do anything special. It's really good at that. Do you only want to overwrite if it's newer? Do you want to only overwrite if it's whatever? Check the help for options. But the basic thing is just, hey, from here to here, go, and then you don't have to manually go and find things and move them around. Turbin says, I think the biggest issue you're having is you don't see an import data button in Deed Tracker plugin. Yeah, so one thing that is a constraint on plugins and plugin development for Lord of the Rings Online is that you only have access to parts of Lord of the Rings Online that are exposed in the API, or Application Programming Interface. And so it is possible to ask about, hey, tell me about the local player. What's in the backpack? Cool. What's the equipment that they're wearing? What's their max morale? What's their max power? But what's not in here is get deeds, get completed deeds, get uncompleted deeds, get started deeds. Nothing of that. And so plugins have to find alternate ways to figure out what deeds you've completed. Now, Deed Tracker does have a way to do an import of your already completed deeds through a desktop program called LOTRO Companion. So I would direct you to try using LOTRO Companion. If you have a lot of deeds you want to import into Deed Tracker, use LOTRO Companion, go through the import process where it will slurp up what deeds you've completed. You have to run LOTRO Companion while the client is running. And then Deed Tracker can use that to import into the plugin data files. And it's a little bit roundabout, but that's because right now there's no interface for a plugin to query the deed completion status of a character. Okay. Aaron Bard says, not at all familiar with batch files. No worries. It is a thing that you can do to automate commands, but if you're comfortable with your memory stick, I just wanted to give you other options depending on your comfort level, but memory stick also works great. Someone says, is there a Tolkien linguist in the house who can give us the definitive pronunciation of Edoras or Adoras? I don't know. We'll throw that out there. Oh, Little Redhead is ready to draw and be done with giveaways. So, in about 10 seconds here, we're going to do the giveaway, and this will be for the Spotted Corgi Cosmetic Pet. And this is going to be the last giveaway that we're doing in the evening. We're going to keep on chatting in chat here about the game and plugins and whatnot, and may even do some plugin development if I stop chattering away here. Lord Zach says, Aaron Bard pronunciation what? Yeah, the city of Edoras or Adoras or whatnot. Okay, the giveaway is closed. Thank you all for joining us for giveaways. Pamela Ella has been drawn. Awesome. Okay, yeah. Terminator says that's what you're using. So, in the plugin, we don't have a way of accessing files that are outside of that Lord of the Rings Online plugin data directory. And so what we need is to use this, it's a hypertext application. And so let me actually go ahead and download Deed Tracker, because I've moved it out of the way for the purpose of the stream. So we're going to go ahead and add in Deed Tracker. Neat. Okay, it's installed. And in-game, we can go ahead and load it in. And we can see, oh, we haven't completed any deeds, even though obviously we have. And this is where that import process comes into play. So what we're going to do is we're going to just go through that. I've already got LOTRO Companion installed, but probably needs to update. I believe there's an update available. Let's see. Sure, update it. Updates live never go wrong. Pamela Ella, looks like you have blocked whispers from strangers, so do give Little Redhead a whisper if you haven't already, so she can send you that code. Or do it in Discord or something. Or if you're already on Laurelin, she can whisper it to you. Oh, she's not on Laurelin. That's okay. What did you do, Marcel? Oh my goodness. That is a huge download. Or my bandwidth is being choked by all this streaming. Okay. We'll let that run here. So what we're going to do is, once it's updated, we're going to do an import. And then we'll see how the import process goes on the plugin side. So we're going to go into Qube Plugins, we're going to go into Deed Tracker, and the thing we're looking for is import deed completion from LOTRO Companion. There's no point in running that until we have an import, but... Alright, looks like Little Redhead has sent you a message on Discord. Okay, so the update is finished. Okay, so you've got LOTRO Companion. The import button is this middle one under MISC. So we're going to hit import, start, and it'll go ahead and peer into your Lord of the Rings Online and say, hey, what's going on? And once we've done that, we're done in LOTRO Companion. We're good. We can close that up. What we want to do next is go into Deed Tracker and find import deed completion from lotrocompanion.hta. As a hypertext application, it'll pop up. It looks a lot like a web page. And in here, it'll offer, hopefully, you see a good state like this. It's got some information at the top. It looks for some configuration files. It looks for accounts that it can import from. And it finds characters that can be imported. And it gives you that option. And we can see import for Deef. I'm going to go ahead and unload Deed Tracker, though, because I want to not... That's an important thing I should probably include. Oh, no, it's fine. I accounted for that, I remember. But you hit the import button at the bottom. It says importing. It reads the XML. It writes the data file. It's done. There's an import all button if you want it, but oftentimes I just want to import a couple of characters. And we're done. The next time Deed Tracker loads, it's going to find that file, and it's going to go through it and say, hey, in that file, we believe you've completed these deeds that LOTRO Companion... that Deed Tracker doesn't know about it. So completed deeds detected by LOTRO Companion, 53. If you're happy with that, hit the import button. Done. If you have completed deeds in Deed Tracker that LOTRO Companion does not agree with, then those will be listed down here. Maybe you completed them by accident. Maybe there's some other glitch. But Malala says, okay, thank you. Twitch does not make it easy to switch that feature. So you can temporarily disable block messages from strangers by messaging that stranger first. So if you send a message to me for a limited time only, I can then send messages to you. If there is no communication between us for some amount of time, I don't know what it is, but let's just call it X, then the no whispering resumes and I can no longer whisper you. So if you send me a message for like one of these code things and I send you a message and then 6 months later I look you up because I want to send you a message, nope, you've blocked from strangers. So it's a temporary lifting of that restriction by you send them a message, they send it back. But fortunately, we have Discord. There's some chatter about is it Edoras or Haterus or some other option. The Token Professor streams many Fridays after Court of the Rings, and he is, I'm sure, confident in his pronunciation of this town, so that might be a good place to go. Awesome. So, who was asking about that? So many giveaway things. Turban. Turban was asking about this import process. So if you're still here, Turban, pop up into chat and let me know, does this process work for you? The connecting piece is this import deed completion from LOTRO companion.hga. Naming things is hard, so I just tried to put what it does on the label. Open it up, hit that import button. The next time you load deed tracker, it will automatically consume that. Lord Zach says we can use the movie pronunciation. Yeah, but I don't remember what the movie pronunciation is. But we've got the DVDs down here, so I guess I could look that up. Yeah, so if I hit the import button for DEEF, come back in here, the next time we've loaded up, we've found that import file, so we pop up this window. It says no changes. Awesome. Now, what would it look like if we've completed something in here that we don't agree with? So load the deed tracker, and it says, hey, but just an FYI, we're not going to do anything about it, but you say you've completed the sites of the Shire, and LOTRO Companion disagrees. No. Yeah, Turban's still here, working on the import, and had to re-download the program. Yeah, the recent update isn't mandatory, I don't think, but it is a big update that has some new features in it. So it's well recommended. It's just not mandatory to do the import part of things. Yeah, so that's what it looks like when you have one. And you'd be like, oops, I accidentally clicked that. Never mind. Lord Zach says, can I post a link, or will that be timed out? I don't know, but thanks for posting that. Let me take a look. Oh, you found the link from the movie. Okay, so anyone who's curious about the movie pronunciation of Edoras in the Two Towers, that is the YouTube video key for that scene. I'm not going to play it here on the stream because it's heavily copyrighted material, but if you search that NMAYWH, if you search that code in Google, well, probably Google, if you search it in YouTube, you'll go straight to that video.
So, mute yourself, let's hear it.
All right, I'm being asked to hear it. Okay, I'll play it on a different, hang on, I'm meeting. Well, that's disappointing. I've got advertisements. Well, Gandalf says Edoras, so take that as you will. Okay, Aaron Bart says, can you give me a quick summary for someone starting with from scratch with both LOTRO Companion and Deed Tracker? Yeah. Well, what I would say is the steps here kind of make that assumption. So the first step is to download LOTRO Companion. There's a link on this page. It says, click here to download. Awesome. You go there, it'll start downloading. These instructions were last updated a couple of years ago, but they still work. The next thing is you do want to make sure LOTRO Companion is finding the right location for your LOTRO client path. It's gotten really good at auto-detecting this. Damien's made some good improvements to this. It used to be a little bit more finicky, but it's good to double check that it's going to the right place. The most important thing for LOTRO Companion, and I don't know if I said here, is many players, when they run Lord of the Rings Online, they get a little dialogue that says, do you want to allow this to change your computer? This is an escalation dialogue. It's giving LOTRO extra permissions. It's running it in a special context, and you have to do the same thing for LOTRO Companion. So if you need to, you're going to come on over, when you run LOTRO Companion, you can right-click that and go to More and say Run as Administrator. If you've bypassed that prompt or otherwise don't receive it, then you don't need it. That's fine. But if you get the prompt for Lord of the Rings, then you have to do it for LOTRO Companion as well. This is like the biggest source of issues, because an unelevated LOTRO or unescalated LOTRO Companion doesn't have the permissions to look at the memory of LOTRO. Lordzuck says, GG, yeah, Deef just got to level 93. Nice job, Deef. John D says, what happens if you don't give it permission? If you don't give Lord of the Rings Online that permission when you first run it, let's see. So on my screen, I get, do you want to allow this app to make changes to your device? That probably doesn't show up on the screen sharing. That's okay. Yeah, you just get a blank screen. Awesome. So, do you want to allow this app to make changes on your device? LOTROlauncher.exe, verified publisher, Standing Stone Games LLC, file origin, hard drive on the computer. Does it show more details? Shows you where it is, information about the certificate. If I say no, it just stops. Aaron says, where is that permission link again? Yeah, the way you can do it with something on your start menu. Let's say I wanted to run Maestro as an administrator. If you right-click it, you'll get a menu. On that menu, More, Run as Administrator. So if LOTRO Companion is one of the things in your menu, then you'll have that option. Lord of the Rings Online, you can also explicitly say, if I say Run as Administrator, if I escalate it there, then I immediately get the, I think it's called a UAC dialog, but the escalation dialog. I immediately get that on my screen instead of waiting until after the program's like, oh, I need to escalate. So that's the biggest, probably the biggest confusion people have had historically with getting LOTRO Companion to work, is that mismatch between one of them is running as an administrator and the other is not. You need them to both be, you need LOTRO Companion to be at least as high as LOTRO. So, once you've sorted out that, then it's just a question of running the import button that will bring it into LOTRO Companion. Pressing the import button brings up another screen. On that screen, there's a start button. The screen has been radically changed since the screenshot was taken. So find the start button, press it. At some point, it'll say import finished. Awesome. Close the window. Close all of LOTRO Companion. It's fine. Oh, I do say that. Haha. I'm great. Good job, past me. So yes, if the import doesn't work, do consider right-clicking the LOTRO Companion icon, going to More, and click Run as Administrator. Do you want to allow this app from none other than publisher to make changes? Click Yes. It's not actually making changes, but it has the capacity for that, and that's a thing to be aware of. Anytime you see that escalation dialog, what it's essentially asking is, do you give permission for this program to wreck your machine? Now, 99% of them are not going to wreck your machine, but that's the essence of it, is in this escalated form, the program has permissions to do things it doesn't normally have to do. It can change configurations and important files on your computer, and unfortunately, there's not a lot of granularity when it comes to this kind of permission in a Windows environment. It's not quite all or nothing, but it's in this case, we are saying a small set of things that could go wrong to a big set of things that could go wrong. But you'll see this escalation dialog so often because a program needs those permissions in order to do things like write to the program files directory. Just be aware, when a strange program is asking, hey, permission to change your machine, it's not just changing your machine, it is, potentially doing bad things to your machine. So just be aware of that and be conscientious of where the software came that's asking for that permission. And Bart says, like the Wednesday updates. Absolutely. That's one of the biggest sources where LOTRO needs to update itself is during the Wednesday updates. Once upon a time, I was getting that escalation every time I ran LOTRO because it wanted to update some Microsoft Visual C++ redistributable files, I think. I don't know if it's still that way or if they've kind of sorted that issue out, because I have a command line parameter that says don't try to do that, and so if they've stopped trying to do that anyway, I wouldn't have noticed. Okay. So, yes, do you want to allow this app from an unknown publisher to make changes? You would need to just say yes to that if you had already escalated LOTRO. Awesome. Once that import is done, then you need the missing piece here between, or the link between LOTRO Companion and deed tracker is this import file here, import deed completion from LOTRO Companion. You run it, it's going to present a list of characters that are both have an export in LOTRO Companion and have a plugin data directory in Lord of the Rings Online. So if it's a brand new character that's never loaded a plugin, it might not actually show up here. So do make sure your character is at least loaded and unloaded a plugin at least once if they don't show up here. And that's it. You hit import the one that you care about, and the process is going to be complete the next time deed tracker is loaded for that character. Hit the import completed beads button. Once you close this window, you won't see it again until you have re-imported for that character. There's a file, a placeholder file, kind of that information goes into it. Once we're done, we delete it. Cool. But yeah, Aaron Bard, or anyone else who's interested, run through the steps here. Feel free to message me on, I don't know, Discord or somewhere. I don't see my messages on Twitch very often, but you can also post on the LOTRO interface page, for deed tracker. You can also just post a question there, and then I'll see it. I get email notifications for that, but other people can also see it, and they might answer the question, or they might have the same question, and that's fine. That's one of the downsides of Discord in this modern age, being kind of a repository of a lot of knowledge, is one, it's super frustrating to find really old things and refer to them. But also, it kind of takes some of this more public-facing, forum-based interaction and kind of puts it behind a wall. It's less discoverable. And I'm not a big fan of that. But I gotta say, I love the rapidity, the speed at which you can have a dialogue with a large group of people, and that's just so much harder to do in a forum environment. So there's time and a place, but the moving of important and useful information away from forum-based, easily searchable text posts to Discord, I'm not pleased with the implications, even though I am pleased with using. I use Discord all the time, but anyway, thoughts and stuff. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and minimize that. And I think we're caught up on chat. So, oh yeah, John D, what happens if you don't give it permission? If you don't give it permission to escalate, most programs will just exit. They will just assume that there was a failure and that they wouldn't have asked for the escalation if they didn't need it, and therefore they cannot proceed. Lord of the Rings Online, there are some command line parameters that you can use to discourage it from trying to do those updates. I wonder if I can find that. Yeah, so in the past, and I don't know if this is true at the moment, but in the past, the -skip raw downloads parameter, excuse me, there's been 4 parameters that I've found very useful. So let me type them into chat here. So there's nosplash, there's skip raw download, there's username, and there's password. Username and password. And I think that is it. Yeah. Okay, so I put those into chat there. I'm being cautious because I prefer not to like display passwords to the world. Okay, so these are the 4 things that you can add to a shortcut to Lord of the Rings Online, the launcher, that in the past have done the following things. So username and password, if you do not want to fill out your username and password in the launcher, if you would like it to just skip to the server selection screen, then you can just, let's say my username was cube and my password was 123. It would look like this. And because this is a Windows shortcut, you could probably also surround them with quotes if you wanted to feel good about quotes. So this would attempt to authenticate username cube, password 123, and if that works, it'll skip straight to the server selection screen, which I like. I don't like having to remember what my password is. It's long and complicated. Skip raw download, this is the thing that tells it to bypass trying to do the raw download, and that therefore it also doesn't do the escalation. Now, on the weekly restart, it has to do escalation in order for any patches. So you're not missing out on patches. You're just missing out on any escalation attempts between patches. And then the no splash just tells it to, don't bring up the splash screen, just only bring up the main launcher window. So those are the 4 things I highly recommend putting into your shortcut for the game. And so where is that? Oh, hang on a second. I'm going to check something. There we go. Great. All right. So this is my default Lord of the Rings Online icon that was in my start menu. You right-click it, you go to More, you say Open File Location. It's going to take you to a place with that file. If you right-click it and you say Properties, that's what's going to open this window. And that's where you can go ahead and add any of these extra parameters. So you can do -no splash, no splash. They do have to be spelled correctly for it to work. You can do skip raw download if you want, skip raw download. You can do your username cube, and password 123, and then when trying to launch, it'll try to make use of any of those parameters that are valid parameters. Okay, so for anyone who's curious about how to do that, hopefully that makes some sort of sense. Okay. So, well, we've actually spent about 2 hours here doing giveaways and talking Lord of the Rings and plugins and all sorts of fun things. So this might be just a fun little cozy way of celebrating 5 years of me playing Lord of the Rings Online, and not quite 5 years of actually doing plugin development. Aaron Bart says, sorry, no splash is for which again? Well, by default, if you run Lord of the Rings Online, you get this splash screen. Now, it doesn't take very long. Nope, I don't want you to do that. It doesn't take very long, but there's a splash screen with the Before the Shadow Nazgul coming at you, and then it goes to the launcher. But when I launch my regular launcher, you notice there's no splash screen. It just goes straight to the launcher. And my basic feeling is I would rather not have any CPU cycles spent showing me a picture saying the launcher is coming soon when it could just be spending those cycles making the launcher coming sooner. Your mileage may vary. You may really like that splash screen, but for me, on this machine, it comes up for such a small amount of time that it's more of distraction and annoying because it comes up and then it goes away. On my laptop, it was up for a little while longer, but so that's what's up. Is you click the link, you see the splash screen, you see the launcher, you cancel out of the escalation. But if you say no splash, you go straight to the launcher. And we can see that because I have skip raw download there, we've also skipped past the escalation screen, which is very nice if you're streaming because blanking up the whole screen because of that escalation is a necessary part of operating system security, but kind of a bummer when you're streaming. So, and we just went straight to server selection there. And that was because I included the -username and -password parameters with my username and password. Now, if you play on multiple accounts, you can set up multiples of these shortcuts, one for each account. I have some test accounts that I use, and so I don't have to remember their usernames and passwords. Their passwords are different and also complicated, but I can just click on that link in my start menu. I could have a whole list of them in here, and it would automatically launch the launcher authenticated for that particular account. And so if you are a person who has multiple accounts for bands, for instance, or for testing purposes for plugins, or even just because you like having a multi-account experience, you will maybe find that a very helpful way to do it. Farathan says, will you update the Minstrel plugin in the future? Almost certainly. Is there a specific thing that you have in mind? And do I already know what it is? And Bard says, very helpful. Oh, excellent. Yeah, Farathan, what issue with, or what's up with the Minstrel buff? Because I know there are some bugs in there, but it has been working generally pretty well for my main. So I've been lulled into doing plugin development on other things because it's been one of those good enough to get me through where I wanted to be. Farathan says, one moment. Yeah, well, while we're waiting for Farathan, yeah, this has been an awesome 2 hours. Thank you very much, everyone, for being here. We didn't get any plugin development done, but sometimes that is fine. So I'd say while we're waiting for Farathan to type some stuff, yeah, if anyone else has any last-minute questions, comments, concerns, now's a great time to get them into chat. Little Redhead and I will, of course, be back next week for more streaming. I think she said there's still Ill Omens happening next week, so we'll probably do some of that on her stream, and I'll be back doing plugin development on mine. Turbin says, okay, that worked. Thank you very much. Must have been because I wasn't logged into the character I wanted to import. Absolutely. Under the covers, the way the LOTRO Companion import process works is it kind of peeks into your LOTRO client. And so your LOTRO client has to be logged in to the character, and secondarily, if you want the contents of your storage, your shared storage or your personal storage or your wardrobe, if you want those imported, you have to have opened them recently on your character as well. We talked about that earlier. That delay that you first see when you first open up your shared storage, and depending on your connection speed and your luck, it may not take very long. I've got 236 things in my shared storage. So when you first open it, there's a slight delay, and that's you downloading all that information from the server. And until it's on your machine, LOTRO Companion can't ask about it. And so, yeah, if you want the contents of your shared storage, your vault, your wardrobe, if you want those imported into LOTRO Companion as well, you do have to have opened them recently. That is not important for deed status, but if you are someone who likes using some of the wide array of LOTRO Companion features, that might be more important to you because you can do things like equip item from inventory or possibly from storage on your character and see how that would change statistics and that kind of thing. Yeah, LOTRO Companion is great for deed stuff, but it has so much more than that. Something someone was asking last week that comes to mind, for instance, is they were saying, hey, is there a plugin that shows you the location of resource nodes for crafting? And the answer is, I don't know of a plugin that does that, but LOTRO Companion does that. Here's all the journeyman cook locations in Anphilas, for instance. That's maybe less useful. Let's go for scholar, and let's go for master. And let's go to the Misty Mountains. Here's all the master scholar nodes in the Misty Mountains. Neat. Okay, Fairthin, thank you for typing all that out. I'm going to go ahead and copy that off and save it to make sure I don't lose it when this stream is done. Okay, Fairthin says, don't get me wrong. The plugin is great. It's quite a while since I played my Minstrel. There are only minor things. I think Inspire Fellowship adds a heal over time to the group, and the plugin doesn't recognize it. I'll try to dig deeper into it. I think I noted 2 things down. Okay, no, you say no heal over time. It was something else in blue line of the Minstrel. Okay. You can't remember. Thanks for reading. No worries. Thanks for bringing that up. It is absolutely true that some of the more esoteric, some of the more blue line specific things or red line specific things aren't necessarily reflected in the UI. And part of the problem is it's a very cluttered UI already. But I think absolutely there's room for tracking some of those other statuses from within Minstrel Buff. So thanks for pointing that out. Aaron Bart says, wow, that's very useful. Can help finding Yarrow. Yes. Well, one of the things you'll see up here is the items that can be found. So if you are looking for if you are looking in the whatever this is, forgotten text, you can expect to find fragments of Dunedin, script, adamant charm, and a candle. But if we go to cook, what do we see? We see potatoes and cabbages in Brie. What about Brie Land? What about Anuminas? Nope. Well, now you've got me curious. Is Yarrow going to be showing up under Scholar stuff or under Cook stuff? Probably under Scholar then. Let's go take a look at that. And what level is a Yarrow? Well, Aaron Bard, I'm not entirely sure. I guess I'd have to know what level that material was. And where do you use Yarrow?
It's a dye.
Yeah, it's a dye. But what level's the dye?
10. The Yarrow is level 10.
Try Binbold Wood, says Aaron Bard, for dyes. Well, we can see there's a lot of indigo in Anphilas. That is a lot of indigo. My goodness. Tried Binbold Wood. Well, the Shire. Okay. So we can see Yarrow root here. Absolutely. Now, can we see only Yarrow root? I don't know. Let's go to the filter. Whoops. We can see Yarrow root or Shadow Pitcher. Great. So these are all the locations that Yarrow root can be. These are all the places that Shadowed Picture can be. And that's actually a really important thing. If you come in here and ask for Apprentice Scholar in the Shire, and what you actually want are those pages, you're going to be very disappointed. So coming into the filter and saying, no, don't worry about the Yarrow, where can I find Shattered Pictures? The answer is going to be not very many places. It looks like the old Lotus Leaf Farm, maybe, down here. The ruins just north of Stock, whatever that's called, with the wolves, and up here in Binbold Wood. Yeah. And the rest of it, Yarrow can be pretty much anywhere in the Shire. Of course, the reality is it's rarely anywhere in the Shire, but it can be anywhere in the Shire. Little Redhead, thank you so much. Yarrow root is level 10, says the wiki. Yeah, Aaron Bart says for dyes. Little Redhead says, Wiki also says, this plant is found throughout Middle-earth, but is readily found in the Old Forest and throughout Breland, the Shire, Eredluin, and North Downs. There's a spawn point of yarrowroot on the eastern bank of the lake in Nenharn. Nice. Oh, Farathan says, now I know one thing again. Inspire Fellowship adds an inner strength, which is not recognized. This was changed in the Minstrel short after you updated the last time. Of course it was. I've gone ahead and written that down, and I'll be able to poke at it when I'm less distracted. Okay. So yeah, if we take what we just heard and we go over to Breland, and we want to filter, we only want, well, again, if you're looking for shattered pictures, you're looking just in the Chetwood, the marsh, just that area just outside of Breetown. That's nice. But if you're looking for Woad, that is all on the eastern side of the Chetwood and down on the border of the Lonelands. And if you're looking for Yarrow, it's everywhere else. That's not true. Obviously, there's nothing in the festival grounds or Hengstaster's farm or in Breetown itself or Archidacombe or Saddle. None of the population centers. But if you're anywhere else, just about in Breland, you have a chance of stumbling across Yarrow. But of course, if I were writing resource node population algorithm, one of the key things that would probably be is how many nodes are already active in the region. Because what you don't want to do is have an inactive region where, like, a player is sitting in Breetown or something, or at Thornley's worksite, and just have these nodes kind of pop into existence to the point, after 12 hours or something, every one of these nodes is populated. That would be a really broken player experience. So I would almost certainly say, hey, up to a certain cap of node existence in Breland, we'll just spawn things in over time. Like maybe once a minute we'll just check, do we need more nodes? Spawn some nodes. Need more nodes? Spawn some nodes. But need more nodes would take into account how many nodes are there already of this type. So Yarrow root, how many of these Yarrow roots are spawned? And maybe 50 of them. Maybe 50 is enough. This could be actually divided into sub-regions. West Breland, North Breland, South, East. Within South Breland, are there already 20 of them? Then that's enough. Don't worry about it. Or maybe there's already 5, maybe 10. Whereas West Breland or North Breland, these are larger places. Maybe you could afford more. So you can get into the weeds when you're thinking about an algorithm like this of, do you just want to run the risk that you might have 50 Yarrow roots just happen to be spawned around Narnhen and nowhere else? Or do you want to make sure that it's evenly distributed across the larger geographic region? Anyway, so you could imagine there's probably some sort of a logic that either every time someone collects a node, you just spawn that same resource node type somewhere in the region, or every once in a while we just wake up and say, do we need more? Spawn some more. I don't know which one Lord of the Rings Online uses. I don't know if there is a good way for us to find out. Like, you could imagine putting a player at every spawn point and seeing what happens when you pick one up. Like, does someone else see one immediately or not? But short of that, I think they would both look pretty similar from the outside. Airmard says, yeah, so in hunting an item, collect everything. There is some of that. This is something that comes up in conversation between Little Redhead and myself. If you are in an area, and let's say there's a quest to go defeat some spiders, and there's a mix of spiders and boars in the area. Depending on the algorithm that's used to respawn a mob, it may very well be that there are mob spawn points that can be either. It can be a boar or a spider. And every time you spawn in an animal, you just flip a coin and say boar or spider, 50-50, boar or spider. And the way this plays out, the way that you get the sense that this is happening, is if you are looking for boars and all you find are spiders. It feels very much like someone came through and culled all the boars, and then someone else, and then there were less boars, and some of them spawned back as boars, and someone else came through and killed just the boars, and some of those came back as spiders, and then someone came back and killed like the 5 boars that were remaining, and now they're all spiders. It is what it feels like. And so the answer is, if you're in an area and it feels like you have a lot of one thing and not the other, you may be experiencing some of that artificial selection of, well, someone's killing all the boars and all we've got left are spiders. And one of the things you can do to help nudge the algorithm along is just to genocide those spiders. Just take them all out. And then you will... Again, if you're seeing this algorithm play out like that, you're going to see, oh, okay, 5 minutes later, 10 minutes later, it's a sort of an even mix of boars and spiders again. And so that can be a reason, beyond Slayer deeds, that can be a reason to just kind of take out everything as you go, to kind of keep the flora and fauna population happy. Depending on how they do it, you could see this being the case for resource nodes as well. Like in regions of mining where there's both silver and barrow iron, for instance, it might be that a single thing might have a 75% chance of being a barrow iron or a 25% chance of being a silver. Now, they could also just have separate spawn points for each, but probably they just have a tier 2 metal spawn point, and you just flip a coin, and it's either going to be silver or barrow iron. And so if you're looking for silver, grab the barrow iron also, because the next time it comes back, it might be a silver. So thinking about the algorithms underneath the gameplay can help guide our behavior towards more productive gameplay. You don't have to. Like, we can just have fun and not worry about it. But I can't help but think about these underlying mechanics as I am looking to achieve a result in Lord of the Rings Online or in whatever game. I'm looking for a thing. How does the thing get there? Why does the thing get there? What is the thing? Who am I? And so a tool like this can be very helpful in telling you where you can find a thing, but it doesn't tell you the underlying algorithm of when does the thing and what is the thing. So just things to think about. And again, I don't have any privy to the actual algorithms that are going on in the game, but what I do have are experiences where I'm in a place and I need some boars and they're just nothing but spiders. And you can't get to that without certain algorithms acting under the surface, right? So we can kind of infer how things work, and maybe we're right, and maybe not. Awesome. Great question. Thanks so much. I really love the Resource Map Explorer here. I think it would be neat. Once upon a time in World of Warcraft, there was a plugin that I used, I don't know, it was like Herbalist or something, and it would pay attention whenever you looted a resource node. It would just track the location of where you are, and it would update your radar to show you where these things had been in the past. And if you pressed M, it would also document it on the map, so you could kind of path yourself around using the updated map with all these resource nodes that had happened in the past. And it could even like tell you how many you had pulled from each location, like how good of a node is it, those kinds of things. But there's just a lot of interface positions between a plugin and Lord of the Rings Online that are missing to have such a full-featured plugin available here. But having LOTRO Companion, where you can at least see the probabilistic map of where can they happen, feels very similar. It gives us some of that same information that I love sinking my teeth in the information like this, and like plotting out, okay, if this is where it is, then what kind of a path would I want to do? But, you know, it'd be neat if we could do stuff like that as a plugin, but it's neat that we can do it at all. So that's cool. Awesome. Well, with all that rambling done, I think now's a great time to bring this to a close. Maybe it's time for dinner. Don't stop making coffee, Deef. You're almost done. And we'll bring this to a close, and then we will be back next week. Thank you, everyone who was able to help us celebrate our 5 years in Lord of the Rings Online for both Little Redhead and myself. We very much appreciate it. And I think that is everything. So, that's everything we're going to cover today. Thank you so much for joining me on this exploration of LOTRO plugins. Even if we didn't actually do any plugin development today, still very fun to have you all here. Hope to see you here next week, and until then, keep plugging along. All right. Bye-bye now.